Okay, so great to have you on the call again today, Ash. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's been 2 weeks. It feels like a long
Yeah,
time, but
I know it does. What happens in 2 weeks?
a lot does happen in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what I wanted to have a chat with you tonight was that I really wanted people to hear your transformation story from
hmm
sort of, where you were with alcohol and
hmm
not just what drinking was like, but also what it was like internally to drink. Because some people think that to have a problem with alcohol, you have to be binge drinking every day or living on the
hmm
street drinking out of a paper bag. But
Yes.
it's truly more about how alcohol affects you and and sort of how it affects how you feel about yourself and your life. And I think your
hmm
story is going to be a really great example for other men and women that you don't have to go all the way down to have a real transformation. So,
Yeah.
with that said, I would love for you to maybe just share a little bit about what it was like for you before you got sober, and maybe think like the 3 months before you actually made the decision to
mm
quit. So, what was your life
hmm
sort of like, average day or week in Ash's life?
Yeah. I was very on and off with my health and wellness. So I had really undergone quite a big wellness journey the last few years before I decided to fully quit drinking. I had given up a few times before, and it was always like I'll just give up for a month or we'll do 6 months. I think the longest I did was 6 months. And I really, at that time, was trying to overcome binge eating
Hmm.
and knew that alcohol was a big part of that because it was really fueling the binge eating for me.
Mm,
So I knew at the time that it was something that I needed to give up, not necessarily just for the alcohol, even though I'd done a lot of research, I knew how bad it was for your sleep and
hmm.
your just general health and things like that, but also because it seemed to be the trigger for a lot of my other habits that I'd wanted to change or get rid
Yeah.
of. Um, but I'd always fallen back into it because of, social events or, my husband likes to drink as well. And we would, go through health periods and then
Mm,
I'd have a drink at an event or something like that. And it was like, even if I had had, a few months off, very quickly I would be back into drinking. I would say I'll just do it every now and then, but it would turn into, okay, I'll just do it on the weekends and it would be Friday, Saturday. And then
hmm.
all of a sudden that turns into Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then all of a sudden you have a bad day during the week and it's like, oh, well, it's Tuesday, but I had a really crappy day today, so I may as well just have wine. And then it just started to creep back into regular life.
Yeah.
And I would always wake up the next morning feeling guilty. It would always derail my diet. And I got into this really bad guilt cycle that I
Mm,
knew that I was doing something that I just didn't want to be doing deep down. It didn't resonate with who I wanted to be, and I just couldn't quite break the cycle. But it was never bad enough that anyone took me seriously when I wanted to quit. My
yeah.
family and friends would always say, are you drinking or are you not drinking? Like,
Mm,
it's quite big in Australian culture, obviously, and people think you're weird if you don't drink. So they find it odd unless you have a problem,
yeah.
which, when does it become a problem? So
Exactly.
yeah, that's basically how
Yeah.
it was going for a few years.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, and yeah, like define the problem because like in the
Yeah,
Australian culture of having a
exactly.
problem, it's like you got to be blackout drunk 7 nights a week to even qualify as a drinking problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think if there's anything that has a hold of you that is giving you any sort of negative feedback that you can't seem to stop, then it's something that needs to go,
Yeah.
no matter how small it seems.
For sure, because it impacts who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And when you would drink, did you find it hard to moderate after you had the first one or two drinks?
Yes, I did. I never was a blackout drunk kind of person, and I never really got messy. I did in my 20s. I was more of a binge drinker in my 20s,
Hmm.
but in my 30s, it was, I'm a mom, I'm refined, I drink wine, and I would never have more than, say, three or four. But I knew that when I had the first glass, I was drinking until I went to sleep. So even if that was three or four glasses of wine, it was slowly over the entire night and it wouldn't end until I went to sleep. So,
Yeah, and that's the common pattern that I like to identify is
mm,
that
hmm
it's the inability to moderate after you pick up the first one that is one of the
yes,
warning signs of future like
hmm
alcoholism or alcohol
yes,
addiction. And it's like
yeah,
you only probably experienced the first little nip of that.
Yes.
But if you play that out, like if you looked back over you, let's say the last 12 months you're drinking, how
Mm.
many times did you have one wine?
I don't think ever. I don't think I ever did. And the thing is, my husband, he would have one beer and then he'd have dinner and he'd be like, I'm done. I don't want any more. I'm good now. And
Mm,
I would get quite frustrated. I'd be like, really? Like, I just poured a wine. I'm just getting started. Like, I
mm,
could not understand why someone would just have one beer and then stop. Like, it felt so strange to me.
yeah. And
Mm.
that's the part that people that don't have that internal feeling when they drink, they
Mm.
can't identify the problem
Hmm.
because only people that are like sensitive to alcohol, the dopamine sensitivity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
some people are more dopamine sensitive, which means they have
Mm.
bigger reactions to alcohol. And
Hmm.
if you don't have that dopamine sensitivity, you can't see what it feels like.
Yes.
And if you have it, it feels like the first drink just generates the second and the third and the
Yes.
fourth. And then
Yeah.
if you keep doing that enough, you actually turn that into a really overwhelming habit. And that's
Hmm.
how alcohol addiction becomes alcohol
Hmm.
addiction. So yeah,
Mm.
just because people don't identify that with you doesn't mean that it's not a problem. It's that they
Yes.
lack the awareness. It's like a celiac.
Yeah.
If they
Yeah.
see everyone else eating bread and they're like, I don't know why she complains about her tummy all the time. It's like, well, you're
Uh-huh.
not feeling what she's feeling in her tummy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. And so let's talk about like a specific day if we can, Ash. Like,
Hmm.
let's talk about one of your worst hangovers where you
Mm.
woke up and just describe that for us if you can, because this is the stuff that
Yeah.
people don't maybe realize. Like, you're looking very healthy and you
Mm.
got your life
Mm.
together and things are going so well
Mm.
now, but like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, paint
One
us the
of
picture.
so this was quite a regular night for me. It would be a Sunday. My husband and I would have said, okay, we're only drinking Friday, Saturday. I didn't work Mondays, but he did. And so I would always convince him, let's have a drink on a Sunday. So I would often I'd get a bottle of wine, and I'd convince him to get a second one because I felt like one wasn't enough for both of us.
Hmm.
And we'd go to bed, and I would often wake up and go to the fridge and continue to eat food because I was also binging at the time.
Hmm.
And I would go to bed, in the bedroom downstairs. I would be too ashamed to come back into our room. We had a spare room and eventually fall asleep. I'd be so full, I'd be drunk. And then I would wake up the next morning, my whole face would be puffy, I'd be bloated, and I would have already been thinking, oh, but I was supposed to start again Monday. But by the time Monday came, I felt so bad that I almost needed like a whole nother day to recover from that. And then it would just fuel this cycle of like restriction that I had. And sometimes I would even end up drinking, like if we had leftover wine, I'd end up drinking on the Monday as well. So
Hmm.
that's probably like when I was at my worst. This was a few years ago.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was a hard time.
Yeah. It is a hard time because the
Mm.
physical sensitivity to the alcohol from the dopamine means
Hmm.
we binge
Hmm.
drink. And then if we've
Yes.
got sugar addiction, then we binge eat, or sugar
Yeah.
sensitivity. So we binge
Hmm.
drink, we binge eat, we go
Hmm.
to bed, and like you said, wake up feeling terrible. And then the guilt cycle
Yes.
kicks in.
Yes.
And then it's like,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
you're already tired because you get a terrible sleep because of the alcohol, because of the food that's not being digested properly, and you're already on the back foot starting the next day. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And then you're trying to use willpower to get
Yes.
yourself to take action from a depleted state,
Hmm.
physically, psychologically, because you're blaming and judging yourself for failing
Yeah.
again 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's such a vicious loop. And
Mm.
so, what else have you like before you actually made the decision and we did some work together? What were the things that you tried to kind of moderate or manage or get things
Mm.
under control that sort of worked for a little bit or didn't
Yeah.
work at all?
I had read a lot of books. I did a lot of like self-help type stuff. So I would often listen to audiobooks. I used to walk a lot. My son was quite young and he was in a pram. And I'd always find a book that really resonated with me and it'd be like, okay, I'm on a health kick now. I'm quitting. But then I would always get derailed by a holiday. Like if we had a holiday or a weekend away, I would always end up drinking again and then very quickly would just, it was like a, ostrich putting their head in the sand. Like, I'm just going to unlearn everything that I've learned and not think about it and ignore the problem until it becomes a problem again.
Hmm.
And yeah, I did that quite a few times.
Yeah. So I was just basically trying the self-help stuff, getting into lifestyle
Yes.
exercise, thinking if I just move in a positive direction, then
Mm,
it'll get
mm-hmm,
better. And
mm-hmm,
then it's almost like I call it like almost like hypnosis. Like it's
mm.
like a forgetting. It's like, oh, the
Yes.
traffic's busy today and I missed lunch. So therefore today I'm going to justify going for a drink. I'm
Yes.
like, how did I forget the 3 days or 3 weeks or 3 months of like consistent
Yeah.
directed behavior to just have
Mm-hmm.
no willpower in that moment and be like,
Yeah.
what the hell? And then, yeah, and then
Yeah.
emotionally for me, and you tell me if this was the same, but it used to feel like
Mm,
snakes and ladders. I'd put all this work
mm,
in, get days, weeks, or months up, and then that first drink had triggered the binge. And it's like
mm-hmm,
emotionally, I slid all the way back to like the guilt and then more
mm-hmm.
on top. And it was just like,
Yeah.
did you
Yeah.
feel that? Like that just
Yeah. And
hopeless.
every time I would start all over again, it felt like it, the motivation was less and less. Like because I'd started and failed and started again so many times, it was like it took so much more willpower and so much more motivation every time to restart.
Yeah, because you've got all this evidence that you can't do it. And so you start
Mm.
forming the belief that
Hmm.
you're incapable.
Yes. And all of
And
a sudden, the book that I'd read that time before, I tried reading it again and it wouldn't work because I would think, well, I drank up again after that one. So now I've got to find something new. And yeah,
yeah, and on it goes. And then
yes,
like
and on and on. Mm.
then what I hate to see, and I do see it, is people lose hope and they think
Mm.
that they are hopeless.
Yeah.
And I got a thing that I call the resilience ratio, which is
Hmm.
essentially the amount of time someone will try something and fail before they think they basically they admit defeat.
Hmm.
And so like if you've got a 1-to-1 resilience ratio, you'll try one solution, it won't work, and you'll take on the belief that I can't do it. It
Hmm.
sounds like you've got a higher resilience ratio than that, which is good, which is like you try problem, solution one, it doesn't work, solution two,
Mm.
solution three.
Hmm.
Eventually, though, it's very hard, like you said, energetically and emotionally just to want to get up and keep
Very.
trying.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah,
Every day felt like either a battle between putting all of my energy and focus into quitting or giving up completely and feeling like a failure. And it was never in between. It was one or the other. I was waking up and I was either giving up and writing off the whole day, or I was waking up and battling through and like, okay, I've got to do it this time.
yeah.
Um,
And it's like wrestling. Did it feel like wrestling with yourself?
yeah, big time.
Yeah. And like with a wrestling match, someone always has to lose. And when you're
Hmm.
wrestling with yourself, part of you has to lose. And so you just can't even win because even when you're winning, part of you's losing. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, and yeah, so
Mm,
that's what people end up with. Like, I think that's a great sort of example of what it feels like
mm,
internally. Now everyone's got a different
hmm.
version of that. Some people are more extreme, some are less extreme, but I
Hmm.
think that paints the emotional landscape, I feel,
Yeah.
and that's why, willpower kind of doesn't work, and traditional therapy, it can work, but it
Hmm.
often doesn't. And there's so many things that
Hmm.
work for other problems, but they don't necessarily work for addictions, because
Yes.
addictions are slightly different. And I'd love to touch a little bit more on that in a sec, but
Hmm. Hmm.
I would just love for you to tell people a little bit more about today, because that was
Hmm.
Ash 12 months ago, the 3 months
Yeah.
leading up to you, and you're 9 months sober now. And
Hmm.
like, it's been such a honor and privilege to work with you, Ash, and to watch
Hmm.
you like watch the lights come on. Like the Ash that I met,
Thank you.
you were there. Don't get me wrong. Like Ash,
Mm,
you were always there. But I remember having chats and you're like, I want to try this and I want to try that, and like
mm, hmm.
what you've tried and how it's just it's so
Yeah.
inspiring. It's so great.
Yeah.
So
Thank
I'd love
you.
for you to tell people a little bit more about what it's like now. So describe, it's been
Yeah.
9 months. What's an average week look like?
Yeah.
What does it feel inside like to wake up
Yeah.
today?
I mean, the drinking was a huge thing for me. I mean, yeah, I wake up and I have so much energy. I have so much more free time because I stopped binging over a year ago and then stopped drinking about 9 months ago. And it's like those two things were taking up so much of my mental space
Mm,
that all of a sudden I had so much free time. I started putting that into my business. I started sharing my journey online, and it's just been completely life-changing. Like my life has done a complete 180. In it feels like such a short amount of time. So yeah, I really can't explain how different it is.
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is. And
Mm,
I love watching the lights come on. That's what I call it. I love what that's my biggest joy in the work
mm,
that I do is like everyone has the light. And then like we just talked about through
mhm,
drinking and failing and feeling stuck and broken, our light dims. And then when the light comes back on, it's like the human being realizes they're free. And then like the future becomes, well, what
mm,
could it be? And then
mhm,
as we take action and we start building our new identity,
mm,
just like the alcohol takes away our belief, every day we stack sober, it rebuilds our belief.
mm.
And then we
Yeah.
start choosing ourselves. And like I love to
Mhm,
hear a little bit more about maybe some, and you don't have to go into like deep detail, but like relationship stuff and like how
mhm,
you've what I would like to know if you raising your standard for your own health and wellness around alcohol and creating a
mhm,
higher level of self-love and self-respect around not harming yourself with drinking, did that have a flow-on effect to other relationships?
mm.
Do you have higher standards? Have things improved in that regard in other areas in relationship?
Yeah, I would say definitely. Well, one, my husband's quit drinking now as well, which is
Oh,
so
awesome.
great. So he's just over a month now sober,
Amazing.
which is really good for him. He had a tough year last year with his father passing away.
Mm,
But I've also met a lot of people as well. Since becoming sober, made friendships, some online, some offline, and I feel like they're a lot more, I guess, aligned to the person that I feel I am now.
mm,
Um, yeah, definitely have deeper connections with people than I had before. I had a lot of friends, I guess, that I'd met in my drinking days that kind of drifted away, and that was okay because my circle is quite small, but the ones that I have in my circle are, you know, really valuable friendships.
yeah. So instead of being a wide group, it's a small group, but
Mm,
it's a deep connection.
yes.
Yeah, I love that. And do you
Mm,
feel, and I don't want to speak for you, so always correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but
hmm
do you feel with that authenticity and that vulnerability that you like that is what has allowed you to find that stuff?
mm,
Let me try and think about what I'm saying. Like putting yourself out there as well publicly.
mm,
Do you feel
hmm
letting go of the shame and not hiding who you are and really
Yes.
leading with like, I'm Ash, this is
Yeah.
what I did, but that's not who I am. This is who I am. And like
Yes.
really being
Yeah.
raw and honest. Yeah.
It definitely has because I had so much shame and guilt, um, with my eating disorder and the drinking that I felt like I was broken for so long. And I saw a quote and it really, really resonated me with the things. It was the things that you are most ashamed of will one day connect you to others.
Mm,
And I'll get DMs or I'll get messages from women now that are struggling and, obviously I don't give any medical advice, but I always try and, provide some sort of like, I guess if people ask my opinion or they want to hear about my journey, I'm always really open to sharing it because that was the whole reason I started my page
yeah.
was for women to be able to connect and talk about these things that we go through. And every now and then I'll get a message from someone that, I've been able to help in some way.
Mm,
And yeah, it's been really inspiring. Yeah.
yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. And
Mm.
I think having the courage to have that vulnerability, it gives other
Mm.
people permission to, because
To to open up, exactly.
yeah, because like we all like to put a nice version of us forward, but
Mm.
secretly, if it all looks good on the outside and we're crumbling and dying on the inside, but we think we're the
Mm.
only one, then it's
Yes.
even more lonely. It's like, oh my
Yes.
God, everyone else seems to have this perfect life and I can't get it together. And then when we hear like, oh no, they didn't either, it was like,
hmm
oh, it normalizes it and it makes us feel a bit more connected. So
Yes.
and so with that, so you're getting great feedback from those other women about the impact you've had.
Mm.
How do other
Mm.
people close to you notice the change? Like what's some feedback you've got
Um,
from people close to you about how you're different?
uh, I mean, my sister literally, she called me this morning actually because she saw a post of mine yesterday where I'd shown, what I was like when I was binge eating and drinking and then cut to now. And she said it's crazy looking back because your whole demeanor has changed. You're so happy. You're like a different person. She said, I could see how much you were struggling back then.
Mm,
and that you couldn't get out of it. And she just said, I'm so proud of you and the person that you are now. And so that was really nice to hear.
That's awesome. She's your twin
Yeah.
too, right?
She's my twin, and also my dad actually. It's brought me a lot closer together with him because he's always been not a man of many words,
Yeah.
but I think me sharing my journey, he's gotten to know me a lot more in a way.
Mm.
And it's been really nice to bring us closer together. And he's actually like my number one supporter on Instagram, and he always
That's
comments
nice.
like words to get my recipes and things like that.
That's super nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, it
Yeah, that's
is.
beautiful, Ash. It's great. And so, if you could describe your identity today in one
Hmm.
word, what would it be? How do you feel about yourself today?
I'd say confident.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, Ash. Love it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about some of the work we did together specifically. And
Hmm.
so, what would you actually say that we did together?
I mean, this might sound like it's really oversimplified, but a lot of just talking, like really talking and getting things off my chest and being able to relate to someone who understood where I was coming from and the thoughts that I had around alcohol and being able to connect with other people
Hmm.
was so big for me. We did a lot of I felt like at times you were just my therapist, to be honest. Um, and
Coach,
I just
but
kind of
yeah.
dumped everything. Yes, coach, dumped everything on you. You always had really good advice for me. But yeah, yeah, we just did a lot of. I feel like just I got a lot off my chest, and that really helped.
Amazing.
Mm.
Well, that's nice to hear. Yeah. So just having someone that understands the problem, perhaps, so
Yes,
that you don't have to explain. You can say one thing, and I'm like, "Does it feel like this?" And I'll be like, "I totally know exactly what that feels like." And
yeah.
here's maybe some things I did to fix it. How does that sound? And just run with
Yes,
that. Yeah.
because I think a lot of it, sometimes you think that the thoughts going through your mind is um, like you're the only person dealing with those.
Mm.
But you kind of made me realize that it's like a lot of these thoughts are very common and it's like a pattern. And because it's so common and it is a pattern, a lot of thought has gone around a framework on how to actually change it. I just never knew what any of this was called.
Yeah.
And you were really able to articulate it and put it into words and give me practical tools
That's
to,
awesome.
help me actually realize and then work on the things that I just thought were, just my brain doing things. But turns out lots of people also go through the same thing. So,
Right. Right. So you thought it was just your brain that was doing that. And so
yeah.
then there was no real like I must be not like different and weird, but like yeah, it
Mm,
didn't feel familiar to you to have people understand those
yes.
patterns.
Yeah. And I guess that's a very egotistical way of thinking about it. But we're all kind of a little bit egotistical
Yeah, I
in a
think we are,
way,
but I think
very egocentric.
yeah, I think that's true to a point. I also think that I would add on to that, like
Mm,
if no one had ever explained to you about dopamine sensitivity before,
mm,
how would you know that you're not crazy to binge drink? If
yes.
no one had ever explained then the relationship between that
Yeah.
dopamine sensitivity and creating habits and how
Hmm.
powerful those habits are and that willpower doesn't work when you've got a habit like that.
Hmm.
It's yeah, I do agree. We've all got a bit of ego for sure, but like if we don't get given correct information, then we can try and like if I've given you a map to Sydney and you're in the city
Mm,
of Brisbane, you can
mm.
drive and follow that map as you know, like you can go up George Street because
Yes.
there's a George Street in Sydney, there's a George Street in
Hmm.
Brisbane, but it doesn't actually work. And I think,
Yes.
yeah, I think perhaps that was part of why maybe you felt that connection because it was like,
Mm,
this is what the science says about the brain
hmm.
of people who are highly addictable.
Mm, hmm.
And you don't have to be 10 years or 20 years down in addiction to
Mm.
have the core symptoms of binging and like inability to
Yes.
moderate when you start, and then inability to stay away from it when you actually want to. And
Hmm.
that's when we set the boundaries, then we come up with the rules. So
Yeah.
and
And I
really
think
nice to
another thing is having awareness because when you raise awareness about something that, you might be thinking in your mind, it's like it takes you to another level and you're actually able to stop and reflect and look when it starts happening, when you start having those thoughts or you start having those cravings,
Mhm.
having the awareness of, okay. And one of the huge things that you taught me, and I still use it all the time, is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
And I use that now for not just alcohol, but so many things. Like if I have a poor sleep, I wake up in the morning and I'll spend 5 or 10 minutes just journaling and
Mm,
saying things like, okay, I've had a bad sleep. This might look like today cravings for sugar or cravings for something else. I'm probably just going to be tired, but in that moment, I'm going to want food. And what am I actually going to need instead? And framing that up in the morning has been really helping me to then not just lean into habits that I normally would have.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. And that's like another one of those frameworks that if no
Hmm.
one teaches you that we have a basic set of like instinctual drives
Hmm.
that when we get tired, they take over and they
Yeah.
become the default, like it's almost like cruise control kicks in our nervous
Mm.
system, then how do we plan for that? We can't.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not that we're mentally weak, it's not that we're weird or broken, it's that this is the way we're designed. And if you don't have the roadmap and know this is potentially going to kick in, here's how we navigate that,
Hmm.
and you kind of drive them blind. So yeah, I'm just loving hearing
Yeah.
that, Ash. It makes me,
Yeah.
yeah, it makes me really
Good.
happy. Like you, I will say you are a hard worker. You
Yes.
do, yeah, I have my respect for that, definitely.
Thank you.
And so I guess I would also like to know who would you say, so my approach is different to other
Mm.
approaches. Like I'm
Hmm.
not against any approach. Like I've got my own
Mm.
beliefs.
Yes.
12-step work for some people, therapy works for some people, whatever really gets people sober is what I fight for. So if someone's
Hmm.
got a solution, it's working, like I'm happy. But there are a group of people who don't fit into those molds
Yeah.
and they prefer an approach like mine, which is I would sort of consider more self-empowerment, like science-based, like
Mm.
habits and positive psychology kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Who would you say my program is not a good fit for? Or my style of coaching or program, whichever one.
I would say if you're the type of person that, what I will say is I was very ready to stop
Mm,
when I came across you. So I think if you're the kind of person who needs someone to, like, if you're constantly changing your mind or you want someone to like tell you how to think about alcohol, then you're probably not quite ready. Um, I think that you need to be ready to give it up.
yeah, I would agree with
Um,
that.
yes.
It,
And I would just say if you're the type of person that um, isn't willing to take feedback on board or willing to try new things and be open-minded. Some people can get quite stuck in their ways or think that they know everything.
mm,
And so I think coming into it with an approach of I'm just going to listen and um, try and take things on board and be open-minded about trying new things. Yeah.
yeah, I love that, Ash. Yeah, I would
Mm.
agree with that. That if you are ready and willing to change, like if you've been
Mm.
trying and other things aren't working, but you're
Hmm.
genuinely ready to stop, then I would agree
Yeah.
that's the perfect person. Because, like
Hmm.
you said, there's a we didn't say this, but I'll just sort of on what you said, which
Yeah.
is there's a certain, I guess, like it's not a timeline, but it's sort of it's a journey that people
Mm.
go on.
Mm.
Like I don't
Hmm.
like, it's like the lukewarm water. It's like I don't like it,
Yes.
I don't like it, I don't like it, I don't like it. But then
Yeah.
something switches and they say, all right, I really have had enough.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Hmm.
that's definitely the intervention point for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah. And
Um,
you actually got like your ad. I remember it so clearly. I saw it pop up the day after I had had like a rock bottom moment for me. And I was like, no, that's it. I'm done. Done.
Beautiful. I'm glad my ad popped
Yeah.
up in your feed. Very
Yeah, me
glad.
too.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
So, who would you say that it's perfect for? We talked about who it's not a good fit
Mm.
for. Who's
Hmm.
who's my style perfect for?
I would say your style is perfect for someone. I mean, I'm probably just going to describe myself. Someone who is like genuinely ready to quit. I would say, sorry, this is really hard to think.
That's all right.
Um, I don't know how to describe that. Sorry.
No,
Give
it's
me,
fine. Eh?
I'll circle back to that.
Yeah, yeah, no
Yeah.
worries at all.
Yeah.
Um, was I've got some questions. So I started reading questions, and I was
Yeah.
getting
No,
off.
that's okay.
I think that's why we're getting off track. I was like, we're
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
talk from the heart, and then
That's
like at the end, I
okay.
was like, I'll hit some questions
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
No, so
That's right.
the point of this last piece of the conversation
Mm.
is to try and introduce some people to an
Hmm.
alternative approach. Now, again, I'm not for
Yeah.
everyone. I'm not trying to be
Yeah.
for everyone, but I
Yeah.
am really passionate, as you know, Ash, that
Yeah.
there are a group of people out there that are not being served by the conventional model.
Yes.
They don't want to
Yes.
label themselves as diseased or broken. They don't
Yes.
want to go do
Okay.
painful counseling every day. They
Yeah.
don't want to spend 3 months in a
Yes.
rehab.
Yes. Okay.
So
I have an answer then. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think someone who would do really well in your program is, if you have tried other things before, like I had with the self-help books, sober, if you're sober curious or you've tried quitting before and you're one of those people that wants to quit but often falls back into drinking because of societal pressures or friends or family, but you have this like deep down want to quit. Um, you don't necessarily have to be an alcoholic. I wouldn't have labeled myself that way, even though I know looking back on my relationship with alcohol, it was problematic.
Mm,
But I don't think that you need to be someone who feels like they're so deep in the trenches. You can just be, like a normal drinker, but want to quit.
mm.
Yeah.
And would you say wanting more out of life as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because that was the thing that I noticed with the people that have had the best results with my
Hmm.
style is that they didn't quit to look backwards.
Yes.
They didn't quit to look in the rear vision mirror. And of course,
Yeah.
there's a period of that. When you first get sober, there's
Mm.
a grief. You go, wow, I wasted a lot of years, and then you
Hmm.
look and you start feeling all the emotions that have been backed up, and like there definitely is a process of like letting the
Hmm.
past move through you,
Yeah.
but then it becomes a future focus, and
Yes.
that's what I would say. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely agree.
Yeah, and I would say if I was to look at you, I would say you spent 20% of the time going through your past, which we had to do, learn the
Hmm.
patterns, identify the habits, but you've spent 80% of the time becoming the new version of you.
Hmm.
Instead of being, oh, I'm Ash and I had a drinking problem, you're like, Ash used to have a drinking problem. I'm Ash and I am free. I have a business. I'm a business owner.
Hmm.
I'm a healthy person now. It was a
Hmm.
full embracing of the new identity. And
Yeah.
I'm basically pitching myself now, so I should stop. But they're the people, right, that I fear
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
and and why I guess I'm saying that is that they're the people that I don't feel aren't really being served correctly. Like
Hmm.
if you value your autonomy, like
Hmm.
you don't want to be labeled and you don't want to go into this like alternate universe of like now you're an alcoholic in recovery and like again,
Hmm.
when that works for people, that's all good. But if you
Hmm.
actually want to quit drinking and then just like go through a period of learning and then
Hmm.
become normal, like your
Yes.
best self, like I don't
Yeah.
feel like you walk around, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't feel like you walk around thinking, oh, I'm this alcoholic in the world and I can't figure out
No.
why. It's like I used to drink, it was a problem. I learned
Yeah.
how to solve that problem. I've got a series of
Hmm.
emotional coping tools, daily
Yeah.
habits, all these things, right? Yeah.
I agree because a lot of what you taught wasn't even necessarily just helpful for alcohol, but it was things that really made me start to look at my life in ways that I could improve it. And I think that's why I sort of took the bull by the horns and just really went for it is because I had, we did so much work on things like limiting beliefs
Mhm.
and that sort of thing that I almost didn't realize that I needed at the time.
Mm.
And it just applied to so many different aspects of my life.
Yeah. And in that way, alcohol's a great, it's a great, it's almost like a gateway drug, for lack of a better term. Like you come
It
in to
is.
quit the drinking, and then we use the pain of drinking and going backwards into
Hmm.
alcohol to then go and basically build life tools, limiting beliefs, values,
Hmm.
setting goals, daily habits and routines, getting around in
Hmm.
supportive environments, learning how to optimize your sleep and nutrition. So
Yeah.
yeah, all right, that's enough of me pitching myself, Ash. But it was really great to
Oh,
chat, and
good. You too.
I think that the people listening will get a lot out of this, and I really appreciate your vulnerability and your honesty.
Thanks,
And
Jordan.
it's been a pleasure, Ash.
You too.
I will. I'm just gonna stop recording. I'll have a chat to you after I stop
Okay.
recording.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right, let me just finish and I'll edit that piece
Yeah,
out.
that's fine.
All
Yeah.
right. All right. Well, thanks so much, Ash. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm sure that the people listening are going to get tons of value from that. And if anyone wants to learn more about your journey, how do we find you? Is it on Instagram?
Yeah, just I'm Ash Meredith 11 on Instagram, so feel free to check me out and yeah, DMs are
Awesome.
always welcome.
Beautiful. All right, Ash, thanks so much. I'll talk with you soon.
Bye.